Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tempo Community Call, October 2023. Always starts the same. We have a few topics conversation today. It's also kind of a bit of smaller group, which is cool. Might give us a chance for more ad hoc conversations. So feel free to think about any questions you have about operating Tempo, or just about the code in general, features you're interested in, roadmap, anything you're interested in. We'd be glad to discuss. Feel free to consider those as we're working through the agenda, and at the end we'll open things up and you can ask something on you can unmute and ask, or you can type it in the doc or in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with will be a fine way to kind of interact. All right, so we're going to start with 2.3. It looks like Pavel added something at the bottom, which I think we're aware of, but we'll get to that. I think Marty can talk pretty handily to that. 2.3 is going to come soon. I'm thinking like next couple weeks is a likely time. The main thing we're waiting on is let me share. I guess I can share my screen. That might be wise. The main thing we're waiting on. Well, thinking about it, is this AWS auth issue. So when we cut 2.2, we believe due to a change in MinIO, it broke auth of some kind. And if you've dealt with AWS auth at all, there's like a lot of ways to do it, a lot of versions, a lot of different patterns. And so we've struggled to fix this. We've released a 2.2.1, a 2.2.2, and a 2.2.3 that all attempted to fix this. And we seem to miss the mark a little bit every time. So this PR here, we believe fixes all issues. And it looks like we have a couple of people responding in it. I thought Mario posted an image. I built this image and I'm hosting it. Well, dang. I thought I'll make sure we get an image name. I'm really hoping people can try it out. Oh, here we go. I've opened a new PR. Why didn't he put these in this one? So here's the two images. I'm going to put those in and he's added everybody in this. I'm going to copy this link here. See comment for test images. So if you use AWS and you have a chance, we'd appreciate any community members testing out these images. Let's feel very comfortable that this finally, kind of corrects whatever these issues were, and everybody can use. Everybody will be able to use 2.3.0 for AWS auth, and we'll be fine. So Mario is working on this. If you want to talk to Mario on Slack, if you're having issues, or of course this GitHub thread, please do. It'll really help us. This is the last PR. Once we have this in, it'll round out 2.3. We'll cut an RC0 and we'll start the process for a 2.3. Also of note, and in the blog post, we're going to give you some good details about this, of course, and I think there'll be a follow-up blog post on this because it's such a big feature, but vparquet3 will be in 2.3. And it's not going to be default. In fact, the reason we're cutting it now is because of an important issue we realized with vparquet3, which is if we made it default this release and somebody rolled it out, and then they had to roll back for some reason to 2.2. 2.2 would begin failing on those vparquet3 blocks. It can't compact them. It can't query them. And they would be caught in this situation where they had a set of blocks that were unreadable by Tempo, basically. So vparquet3 is in. We consider it GA. We're running it in production and have for the past few months. So we encourage everyone to use it. There'll be upgrade instructions for vparquet3 and what it does and why you want to use it and why it's so much more performant than 2. And we encourage everyone to move towards it, but we're not making it default. And then in 2.4, it will be default. And that way, if you have issues in 2.4, you can roll back to 2.3. Everything will work. So it's really like it's a rollback issue, I suppose. It's an issue with downgrading your version. We wanted to make sure that would be possible. So get excited about vparquet3. I don't have numbers offhand, but we've seen really impressive improvements both in memory usage, on queryers, on compactors, people who are having compactor ooming issues. This very much could help. Query times are much faster, much less data is pulled from the back end. It's all around happy. So get excited about that feature. And in addition, we have a handful of more structural operators, which I think are really cool. The not operators are neat. These are kind of, we had child before, that's parent, and that's ancestor instead of descendant. So the kind of reverse as well as the nots, which are neat. What's the query we've been playing with, Marty? This one's kind of cool right here. Status error. I know this looks weird, doesn't it? This right here will find the last error in a chain of errors. So this is kind of like a root cause analysis query. So it will match on anything with status error that does not have a descendant of status error. And so this is a very powerful query to find the last in a big chain. So you have a giant trace and you want to find, right, the last error, because presumably the last error in the chain is where the error began. And this is a quick way to find like the end of a set of errors, essentially. We've also come up with some other queries that I think that'll be quite powerful. But this in particular is why I really wanted to make sure this is available for 2.3. This query right here I think is really neat, and it's allowing root cause stuff to kind of be more powerful in Tempo. I think you have a question. Feel free to unmute or slap it in chat, whatever you're comfortable with there.
Yeah, hi Joe. A small question on this query which you mentioned. So how is the my question is, I guess, very simple or pretty basic. Is how is this gonna work with a particular service? Do you put in the service name and look for trace for that particular service, or is it just like gonna look at all your traces and get that?
So this query right here, as I wrote it, will find any service, essentially.
Okay.
Like it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But you might be interested in something more, direct. Let's say you were looking for, now we can really have some fun. We can say something like span dot http dot route equals /foo, some endpoint I'm interested in. See if you can decode this madness. Marty, is that right? So basically, you're looking for a descendant of this endpoint. So I know an endpoint is erroring. This endpoint right here is having problems. And I'm specifically looking for descendants of this endpoint that match the conditions I described before. So this will find the final error and a set of errors beneath a specific erroring endpoint. So, the reason we have tracing is because you'll have like 20 or 30 or 100 services all working together to respond to a given HTTP request. So if I know at my edge, this /foo is erroring, this kind of a query will find the end of any errors beneath that, which is kind of neat, I think. Am I right, Marty? I think that's right.
Yeah, so it would be like the timing out database call, or like a file error, like the very last error at the deepest part of the trace. Yeah, that's right. What that should find.
So that's pretty cool. So we recognize that these queries are getting kind of complex, and it might not be something you could just slap together. Something that is being worked on also is like a Tempo app. That's a little undesigned. We're just talking about ideas. Most of our ideas, though, are surrounding these kind of structural queries. So, building in this like expertise to more of a UI where a user can not have to know how to type this particular query, because that's kind of intimidating. It would take you a bit to unpack that and probably a bit to write that, unless you were kind of an expert at the language and you understood all the details. So we want to start encoding like our expertise, our knowledge, and we want to build an app to do that. But that's future stuff. Right now, we're still working on, an awesome query language and database. Cool. So there in the blog post, we will definitely include, the new operators. Every blog post for every release since 2.0 has had a short video where we've talked about use cases. So I will do my best to include some cool use cases for these new operators, so people can see them in action, understand why we added them, see some of these more esoteric, strange queries, and maybe start to get more comfortable with them. So there'll be some more content around release time that will help unpack some of this. Cool. Another issue. So this should be in 2.3. I'm working on a fix right now. We really want it in cloud, and I would assume others want it as well. But if you return, when tempo returns, resource exhausted, which it does when someone exceeds their rate limit, retries are not working as they are configured on the OpenTelemetry collector or the Grafana agent. The reason is because this changed, and when I say this changed, I'm not pretending this changed last week. This changed over a year ago, but tempo is not caught up, and we just noticed it now. If resource exhausted is returned, this is OpenTelemetry collector code. The collector requires more information than it did when we first wrote tempo to clearly indicate a retry is expected. So we're going to patch this soon, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. We really want it in cloud, like I said, so we can start doing this correctly in cloud. But we are currently not returning this retry info. And in 2.3, we will return this. So your OpenTelemetry collector or your agent will correctly retry on resource exhausted when if it's configured to do so. Basically, this makes it honor the configuration settings on the client side, on the agent side, where before it was not honoring the retry settings because we were not passing this particular bit of information back. So I'm working on a fix right now for that one. And then I think we're going to cut over to Marty. We have spent a big part of this quarter thinking about TraceQL metrics and how to do it, what the syntax looks like. We're kicking that project off, the actual coding next quarter. This quarter was all design and internal discussion. And so we have some results there, and I think there's a lot of super technical details that are probably not worth sharing on this call. But I think the biggest thing that we want to share on this call is the syntax, because that's something we can all discuss and think about. And we have some important reasons why we went the direction we went. So I'll hand it over to Marty, and he's going to talk maybe a bit about some of the syntax choices we've made and why we made those. Do you want me to just stop and you can share? Or switch over here?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just kind of...
Oh, my bad. Oh, you got it.
Yeah. You can see it, okay?
Okay.
Okay, hey, so kind of like we're just going through the syntax maybe and how we see TraceQL plus metrics working, right? We won't really talk about the implementation or things like that, but just talk about the syntax. We really like TraceQL, the kind of like pipeline, kind of like way that language works right now. So we want to think that would work really well for metrics. And this is just kind of like this query here would be kind of like, let's look at this one. This would be like your most basic query, like find all my HTTP status codes that are greater than 500 and just plot them on a time series, right? So what's big here is like you already have a query that is finding spans that you're interested in, right? So you could use that and already do a search and get the spans back. Or now we start adding these metrics pipelines to the query and they start outputting time series. So in this case, like this is just a really simple one, rate, right? So on the kind of like what I have here on these little arrows here, this half of the query is just your existing query that already works. If you run that, you get spans. If you start piping it through a metrics type function, you start getting time series. So this should make it like really easy to work with, right? You already have something like that query that maybe Joe is just showing where we're finding like the root cause. Now we can start plotting that on a graph without really like massive changes to the query. So I think that's really cool. Here's what it would look like to show P95 duration. So instead of piping it to a rate, we have a new function here called quantile over time. And you give it kind of like your time window, the P95, and then what attribute do you want to select on, right? This duration here is the intrinsic. It could of course be anything. And, you know, I'll kind of get down to maybe some of these other functions that we kind of like see on the radar. But just to talk about this a little bit, why are we not doing a Prometheus style type language? And we looked at this a lot, right? The familiarity aspect is pretty big. That's a very good reason to stick with it, right? But there were just a lot of reasons that it didn't make sense in tempo. And there were, it seemed a lot better to go into this one. So kind of like if we were to do maybe this rate query here and just show it as like this, what would it look like in Prometheus? You've got your TraceQL query embedded in here, but there's a lot of parts that just don't really fit Tempo. One, there's no reason to sum. Tempo doesn't have streams, so there's nothing to really sum together, right? Like your spans could be part of any query. So there's not like the individual pre-existing time series that you have to sum together. So you can eliminate this, right? And then this one's okay, but this nomenclature here for a rate doesn't mean anything in Tempo. Like in Prometheus, this is actually meaningful. Is that you can actually take a, like an attribute selector and put this on here, and it turns it into like a range expression and things like that. Like we don't really need that either, right? These functions create the time series from the individual spans. So I think that makes a lot of sense to not go with that route. And then if we were to look at something like this histogram, like this pretty big divergence here already. So like this is the older style. So like there's no buckets here for LE. You don't have to create these buckets. We already have all the individual spans. We can compute the histograms on the fly. Again, no summing. We have to add an attribute selector in there somewhere because the span doesn't have any innate value like a time series does. It already has a value. That's what it is. So we have to add something in here. So it just seems like there was a lot of divergence here from kind of like this, I say Prometheus style, but it's almost more like, mathematical function style or something like that. So it seemed like there was a lot of reasons to go away from that. And going back to this like pipeline. So that's kind of like what we were seeing with that. And just to kind of like maybe explore like this first part here where you go from spans to time series, right? These are the kind of the functions that we're looking at. So rate, count. This is kind of like the increase in Prometheus, but just count. Quantile over time I talked about. I think this one's actually really cool. I'm most excited about this because this syntax is super cool, I think. Really simple and easy to use versus something like, which we've all written a million times, like this one. Min, max, average. You can, of course, do something like this, right? Oh yeah, we were also talking about grouping. Yeah, let me get into that. So you could do something like this, rate by cluster, right? This would be any TraceQL attribute, resource.cluster. And you can keep pipelining the metrics. So instead of wrapping like with more functions, you could do something like this. This is something that I was thinking about how to implement. Right, so this would be, what's my rate? Like, what's my single highest per pod rate occurrence of this for each cluster, right? So I have 10 clusters, they all have 100 pods each, but I want to know what was the high water mark for an individual pod in each of those clusters. Maybe I'm looking at like an or a high latency or something like that. So you can keep piping, and then so these functions take time series and then do more stuff on it. There's a lot of similarities here. Like maybe you want to know what the P95 of a rate was, or the min, or the max, or the average across these other things. Yeah, so that's kind of like what we're looking. Yeah, we can pause here. I don't know, Joe, do you have anything to add, or do you all have any questions or thoughts?
I think it's a good discussion. I'd be interested if anybody is super concerned either way. I do know there's reasons to use Prometheus style. I personally was happy we landed on not, because I really dislike the combination of piped languages and function languages. I think it turns into a bit of a mess, so I'm glad we're sticking with one direction. I do think there is some value to using Prometheus due to familiarity, but we feel like since our fundamental data that we're querying is not streams like Prometheus, it breaks too much. And the value of using Prometheus is lost some, because when people write these queries, these functions are designed to work on streams of data, which don't exist in Tempo. So you're just querying a set of spans, which you then pass through some functions to turn those sets of spans into metrics. But absolutely, we're interested in this in community feedback. If anybody has some on the call, we'd take it. And then we'll probably also post a design doc at some point in the future as a request for comments, as another opportunity to kind of give feedback and thoughts on a style like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. First of all, I would like to say this is very powerful and I'm excited to see this and try it out when it's released. But one small concern I have is for our end users, because we have faced a lot of struggle to convince our users and make them learn the TraceQL. And now we are adding few functionalities for them to try out new things on the side. And that's going to deter them and decrease their, again, this is my side. I don't know how other companies and how things work at other companies, but for us, primarily, this has been a little bit of a challenge to educate them and to make work with this. And then we are adding on top of it something new altogether, which deteriorates from PromQL. It's gonna be a big lift, to be honest with you guys. But yeah, again, this is just my first impressions. I'm not trying to dictate anything.
Oh, no, absolutely. What you're talking about is we've also been talking about. I mean, a new query language, or yeah, it has a lot of like, it raises the barrier for entry to get into and start exploring your data. I mean, ultimately, like, I think a better UI, like a better user experience, tooling, dashboards, and things like that kind of like gives you this data without requiring you to see the query language itself. So I think there's a lot of like stuff built on top of Tempo. I mean, Joe kind of briefly mentioned like a Tempo app or things like that. Like, so like there is other stuff that we see happening that helps us. But ultimately, I think this query, the query is the interface to Tempo between Tempo and all of that kind of like UI and tooling on top of it. Like if we didn't have this, what would that look like? An API to get metrics and to do things, but you don't have the query language, so it's just a lot harder to work with, I think. But yeah.
Right. I second what Marty said, and your concern as well. Like moving. In fact, I was just thinking about this the other day. If somebody from a senior level shows up and tells us to do the Prometheus style language someday, it would not surprise me. We really want to go the direction we're pushing here, but Grafana as a company is fairly invested in PromQL. Like LogQL, it does a lot like it. Has similar functionality, and of course, we invest heavily in Prometheus. We employ most of the maintainers and all this too. So I really like the pipe style language and sticking with it, but I totally get the concerns of not. I'm hoping at the least, so we have a pretty solid simple query builder right now where you can just go and select some basic fields and it writes a TraceQL query for you. I would hope to extend that to be like, okay, click add rate to this, please. So you don't have to know anything. You say your service name, you say your HTTP codes you care about, and then you see some results, and then you say, oh, show me the rate of that click, and you see the rate too. So I do hope that will alleviate some concerns. And power users will enjoy the language as we're envisioning it here with the pipes. But I don't know. I'll tell you, designing language is harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, no, I agree. Again, I'm not trying to be on the bad side of things and just raise my concerns. I just wanted to share my opinion, how we have seen things evolve here at my organization, and I just wanted to give you some candid feedback.
Absolutely. I would say when we go and talk to a lot of orgs, a lot of times they're like another language, like that's their first like response all the times to TraceQL. Smaller orgs, I think, tend to be more excited because it's easy to train up 2 or 3 people real quick. Like, oh, we only have 3 devs. Yeah, this will be easy. Bigger orgs are going to struggle, I think, a lot of times with, a new language, a new way to query things. So yeah, absolutely. I'm not down on your thoughts at all. I don't know. I'm glad we did TraceQL. I don't think there's anything like it. I'm glad we're not selecting or using SQL to query traces, if I'm honest. And I think TraceQL is far better than that. But yeah, it is a new thing, and that is friction, instant friction for sure. Thanks for your feedback. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Will it be possible to just share the two queries which Marty mentioned in the community call? Because I know I can't see that in the community doc, sorry. For me to take a look at it later and just get initial impressions with my team as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And please come back and let us know how people feel about it. We'd love to hear that. And like I said, we're going to eventually post a design doc, and that would be another great time to get those ideas in, give some thoughts. I mean, if 1,000 people show up and say, "Hey, you have do a Prometheus style language, it'll be so much better," then I don't know, maybe it'll change our mind. Like we are an open source project, and we're devoted to our communities, so we're open to hearing your thoughts for sure. And it looks like Marty moved those over.
Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, let's move forward. Pavel has a question. What's up, bud?
Hi, everyone. So I was wondering if you would cut 224 that contains the bump of tempo query, or it's going to be out in the 2.3.
Marty, are we cutting 224 for that CVE?
Well, yeah, maybe we can talk about that one first then. I don't know. I wasn't planning on it because 2.3 is right around the corner, and I didn't know how urgent it was for tempo right now. Like internally, right, we have to cut some images for it.
How critical is the CVE? Is this the same one that we just patched this morning, the one Pavel's asking about? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I added the link here for the PR to address it in tempo. So we just patched that this morning.
Is this like remote code execution or something where we really should be cutting something today, or?
I think it's a DDoS, more or less.
On query or on write?
No, it just in general. So connection-wise, you can, like a bad actor can initiate HTTP connections, probably on both endpoints. That can cause a DDoS. Yeah.
Okay. So, likely not super critical to cut immediately. Pavel, I would prefer, just because there's some overhead, just waiting for 2.3. Rapid stream resets can cause excessive work. Like a 2.3, which, like I said, this off thing's the last one. Once we merge that, we'll start the process. I wouldn't be surprised to see an RC0 toward the end of next week, and that will have your Jaeger query upgrade, as well as the CVE. Is there an immediate need at Red Hat for either of those? Like today, is that important?
Yes, so we merged something in the tempo operator that requires the new version of tempo query. That's the reason I'm asking. We could as well, what would be enough would be that if the images in the release branch would be pushed per commit as well as they are on the main branch. Not stack, but just the SHA.
You are looking for, you just need the commit hash of the,
Yes.
I can get that if you're interested, yeah. And it sounds like you only need to upgrade the one, right? You only need to upgrade that one image, the one that does the Jaeger query thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, I can get that for you. I'll DM that to you in Slack.
I have one more question for the CVE. I'm looking at the pull request, and I saw a fix in the Golang gRPC library, and the pull request doesn't upgrade the gRPC dependency.
There's a replace at the very bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, do you see it?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's fixed in the 154.
No. The PR changes to 158.3.
Okay, I don't see it.
Okay,
you should. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have the PR
I
pulled
was
up.
looking at my
Yeah,
screen. Okay, that sounds good.
yeah. And so this is my understanding of the fix is it requires 121.3, this gRPC, this version of XNet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've done those. Yeah, we mentioned like this. So this would be in 2.3. We hope that's pretty soon. Yeah. If you're aware of anything else out there, like, you know, we could sync up our knowledge on the CV and make sure we have everything.
That's my understanding as well.
Okay.
We need to
Yeah,
make all
cool.
these changes.
Yeah, I ran this command is cool for this one here, Trivy, which seemed like it, you know, like builds confidence that the vulnerability was there before. So I ran it on main and then I ran it after these changes. And so it addressed that one. Not sure, you know, if it's 100% perfect, but that builds some confidence.
Could we backport this fix or a similar fix to the 2.1 branch without cutting the release?
There is significant hurdles with upgrading gRPC and the other dependencies. I think 2.1 might be pretty hard, actually. Yeah, so it's kind of like a chain of dependencies. We have to go through the collector, which references Jaeger, which references gRPC. And so we actually just got that chain of dependencies upgraded recently. Mario's not on the call, but that was just figured out like a week ago. So I think anything before then actually would be hard to patch.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. It would be real tough to cut a 2.2 with this, wouldn't it? Or a 2.1. Even a 2.2 would be hard.
Maybe.
Because it would be before the big upgrade. We'd have to backport Mario's change and then backport this. Dude, the OTel collector dependency kills us. There's so many dependencies. We need to figure out a way to drop it. I don't know.
Yeah, because we are building our version of Tempo, and we currently productized, I think, 2.1, and we will need to fix the CVE, and we would prefer to have the fix in the release branch for 2.1. Even if it's a bit complicated, it's gonna make our life easier. We don't have to cut it in the upstream. We don't have to like release the Docker images.
I don't know. Like, we'd have to go look at that PR. If you would like to try backporting it to the 2.1 release branch and see what happens, where is that PR, Marty? Can you share the one Mario put together? That it might just go right on. I honestly don't know. Let's find Mario's and then link yours. Let's link both of those and see what the opportunity is to actually pull that off.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'll have to look through these to figure out which one it was. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, we'll get it, and we can put the link in the community call doc.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I'm looking. Did Mario do it? I'm looking under his.
Yeah, maybe it was Kunrad.
Okay. Yeah. Well.
Oh yeah, it was this one. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
See how complicated that. Oh my God!
Okay.
Bring that up again real fast. Let's see what the changes in tempo are. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like this is what was keeping us stuck on that old gRPC. And this was the fix. We just had to wait for some upstream movement.
So this might not be that bad because there's no tempo changes here. I thought there's like going to be a lot of tempo changes due to
no breaking,
whatever, some changes to the collector stuff. So maybe these will just go right on top. 2.1's a long time ago. We can try. Would not totally shock me if we had issues with this upgrade.
No.
Okay, we will try internally and
Okay.
submit the PR to the branch.
Let us know what you see, and we can
Okay.
help if there's some weird corners.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay,
and
thank you.
these links are in here. Yep.
Perfect, thanks.
All right, this parquet panic on Big Endian.
This is a funny
What
one.
can we do about this one? Yeah.
So I was trying to look at it. There is a PR linked to this ticket down there. Essentially using Docker build X to run the tests, unit tests in the repo, which fail on the big Endian architecture. I was trying to fix it and I failed miserably. I was trying to change the encoding packages to always make sure the binary little Endian package is used to properly encode the decode. But I couldn't fix it.
What tests fail? I'm trying to even think.
On the bottom, there is a list. I put
here.
the list of failed tests.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe if you scroll down, I have a comment with some summary at the bottom. Yeah.
Is it when it's creating these buffers, is it just using the default architecture, or the architecture is kind of encoding natively, and then maybe on decode, it's, maybe it's doing some unsafe tricks and it assumes a little Endian or something? This is a weird bug.
This works on ARM, right? Isn't ARM Big Endian?
No.
Oh.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't know. But you can do it. So with your command there, you can recreate it like on my laptop, for instance, on my AMD laptop 64, because it'll run it with because it'll run it in the with the build X, whatever it is. Oh geez.
Are you familiar with the library? Like I guess you are, right? With the Parquet library.
What did Ashiel say? He's kind of the expert here.
Yeah, Ashiel's the expert. Yeah.
What is weird if you scroll down? This one I was able to fix.
So there's only assembly for AMD 64. So I think you're right. Probably it's using some knowledge of the byte layout like differently than expected, and using binary.little Endian or something like that is probably what's needed.
But what you would have to everywhere we assume we would need a prototype version. Right, so you'd need like a function that checked the Endianness. Can you, or in Go, can you?
Yeah, you can get the Endianness.
You can test through it.
But so my understanding is the Parquet should use little Endian everywhere, right? So it's in the format specification that the numbers, like everything uses little Endian.
Oh.
They use little Endian in most of the places. This one, the 96 int, this one I fixed. That was pretty easy fix, but it broke somewhere else. What's messed up is as well they use the unsafe package to change the type of an array. They use it in place.
Right.
They don't allocate the array, and it's making some assumptions. And if you change that package, the package of Go, unsafe package of parquet-go library, it's going to break a lot of other stuff in the code base. So that was my first try. Then I tried to change just the encoding packages, but that didn't do anything. And if you scroll down, what is weird, it's this test, the buffer test. It runs for int32 floats and uint32, and then for double and int64. the int64 and double and UUID, they pass, but these like 32-bit long types, they fail. Which is kind of weird, right? Like for the bigger types, it's fine, but for the short types, it's failing.
Right.
And the dictionary test as well, it's failing just for int, float, and boolean, and not for the double and the others.
Maybe the handling around the 32-bit data types is the problem. Although Boolean's weird, I would expect that to be smaller than 30. Well, no, it's probably like the word size or whatever on the CPU. So it's like it's the fastest thing I can do is just use a whole word, and so it just does. Yeah, I don't know, man. This is a tough one, and I don't know who has bandwidth to dig into this. Maybe if there's a customer of Red Hat that cares enough, they could pay to have this figured out. They could fix this bug.
I see a day of
Did you say
dude,
that
come on.
this is?
You have
did you say this is
IBM
what you all are
Wizards
running
somewhere over there,
internally?
don't you? Get some like big Endian 390X like guru to come along. Somebody from IBM Z team's got to be able to know how to patch this together.
It's more. I need to find somebody that knows the parquet-go library. It's not about the architecture, I would say.
Okay. I mean, I know a bit. I think Marty knows a bit more. And there's a person on our team named Adrian who also is pretty strong in that library. But Ashil, the person who commented, is the expert by far. He's probably responsible for 90% of the lines in the library. And he is, he's the one who would definitely be able to help. I don't know if it could be fixed like a test at a time, like, instead of trying to do one big PR, maybe find fixes individually and slowly roll them out. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, I think at this point there's a lot of unknowns. You would have to just start with one of these failing tests, or maybe fix a couple, and then you'd know if there's a better way to do it.
Well, Pavel was saying you fixed one of the tests, but in fixing the test, it broke other tests.
Yeah, I fixed the first one, and then it broke the other tests on the AMD architecture.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex library. It cuts a lot of corners in order to be performant. And we have run into stuff like this before where we've kind of struggled, eventually kind of come up with a fix. I don't know. If I have some bandwidth, I can take a look, but I am not the expert here. But I'm a little slammed at the moment. Maybe in a couple weeks, once things clear up, hopefully, I wouldn't mind taking a poke at it. But I'm not. Ashil's the one who would really have the the expertise. What is he up to?
I will spend more time. Definitely. I was
Red Hat
just
should
curious
hire
if you'd know. Yeah.
Hire him and then have him fix it. He's currently doing some kind of what is it? Some kind of startup, right? He quit. He's currently doing some kind of where was he at? Stripe? No, Shopify. Is that right? Spotify, Shopify.
Segment in Twilio.
I'm so wrong. Thank you, Segment. Now, he was at Segment when he wrote this library, and I think he's doing his own thing now. So have Red Hat buy that company. Have IBM buy that company. For them, it would be like, nothing. And then once they bought the company, have them fix the bug. That would be pretty funny.
I will try to propose it to my manager or someone.
Okay. All right. I'll get back to you, Pavel, on what was it that I owed you? Oh, the hashes. I'll give you a Docker image for that Jaeger query that fixes that, so you can do that. If you poke at the backporting for 2.1 for the CVE, we'll try to help you some on that one. And then, maybe the parquet-go thing is going to be a longer term. We'll see what we can do.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.